والسلام على من لا نبي بعد نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اقتفى أثره واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. Inshallah نستمر. We'll continue with reading from the book known as شرح اصول اعتقاد أهل السنة والجماعة لأبي القاسم هبة الله ibn al-Hasan ibn Mansur al-Lalaka'i rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 418 after the Hijrah. The book where the author rahimahullah ta'ala is covering the fundamentals that the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah is built upon, as well as refuting some of those issues that are outside of the methodology or the minhaj of the people of the Sunnah in their belief. And we've reached the fourth chapter of the book, the chapter where the author, he said, سياق ما روي عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الحث التمسك بالكتاب والسنة وعن الصحابة والتابعين ومن بعدهم والخالفين لهم من علماء الأمة رضي الله تعالى عنهم أجمعين. The chapter regarding the context of what was, or the context surrounding what was narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the encouragement of holding fast to the book and the Sunnah, as well as that which was reported from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, and those who followed them, and those who came after them from the scholars of the Ummah. May Allah be pleased with them all together. So as we mentioned in this chapter, the author rahimahullah ta'ala, he's mentioning those statements from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba and the ulama regarding the importance and the encouragement, the benefits of holding on tightly to the book and the Sunnah. And we've reached the narration. We had to stop early last time, and so we'll redo the narration, where the author rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, أخبرنا كوهي بن الحسن قال أنبأنا أحمد بن القاسم قال حدثنا الحسن بن حماد سجاد قال حدثنا إسماعيل بن إبراهيم قال حدثنا أيوب عن أبي قلابة عن ابن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه أنه قال عليكم بالعلم قبل أن يقبض وقبضه أن يذهب أهله، أو قال أصحابه وقال عليكم بالعلم فإن أحدكم لا يدري متى يفتقر إليه أو يفتقر إلى ما عنده، وأنكم ستجدون أقواما يزعمون أنهم يدعونكم إلى كتاب الله وقد نبذوه وراء ظهورهم فعليكم بالعلم وإياكم التبدع وإياكم والتنطع وإياكم التعمق وعليكم بالعتيق. This narration, we covered some of it, but we'll go over it again because we can finish it. He says that Kuhi ibn al-Hasan informed us. He said that Ahmad ibn al-Qasim informed us. He said that al-Hasan ibn Hamad Sajjad narrated to us. He said that Ismail ibn Ibrahim narrated to us. He said that Ayyub narrated to us on the authority of Abi Qilabah, on the authority of Ibn Mas'ud, who said, upon you is knowledge. It is mandatory upon you. Knowledge is something that is mandatory upon you. Seeking knowledge is mandatory upon you before it is snatched away. And it being taken away or snatched away is that its people will go away. The people of knowledge will go away. Or he said the companions of knowledge, those people who possess knowledge. And he said, upon you is knowledge, right? Seeking knowledge is something that is obligatory upon you, because indeed one of you doesn't know when there will be a need for him, or when there will be a need for what he possesses. A need for what he possesses. He says, and indeed, you all will find groups of people. You'll come across groups of people. Excuse me. They claim that they are calling you or inviting you to the book of Allah, but they have thrown it behind their backs. So upon you is knowledge. And I warn you against innovation. And I warn you against pig-headedness. And I warn you against ta'ammuq, yani trying to be too deep into matters or trying to delve too deeply into certain matters. And instead, upon you is the classical or the ancient ways, the ways of those who came before. So in this narration, we had talked about some of the benefit. Ibn Mas'ud, he says, alaykum bil ilmi qabla an yuqbad. Seeking knowledge, i.e., this is how we state the implication, alaykum bil ilm, Yani knowledge, I'm encouraging you with knowledge. Right? Alaykum min sighatul ighra, from the ways of encouragement and, you know, pushing people to do something. You say alaykum. Upon you is knowledge, i.e., seeking it and acting according to it. And he says before it's snatched away or before it's taken away. And we talked about, right, seeking knowledge, although knowledge and faith will consistently be present and accessible until Allah wills, the accessibility to it will vary from time and location one to another, from time to time, location to location. And so, excuse me, even though knowledge will have its presence on the earth until Allah decides, the access one has to it can be limited and restricted. And so from that aspect, seeking knowledge has a limitation on it, has a time limit on it. It's something that needs to be done sooner rather than later. And this is an important principle that the Muslim needs to be aware of. That yes, as long as the Quran is between the people of the earth, as long as the Quran is amongst the people of the earth, and as long as the hour hasn't been established, then there will not cease to be a group of people victorious upon the truth. These things are true. And as Ibn Mas'ud says, knowledge and faith are in their place. Whoever seeks them will find them. These things are true. So knowledge will always be here to some extent. But because the access to knowledge can vary from time to time and location to location, a person must take advantage of acquiring it as soon as possible. Because maybe the time period that you're in or the location that you are in, the opportunity that you have might go away. And the going away of that opportunity could be the equivalent of you missing out on the acquisition of that knowledge. And so Ibn Mas'ud is encouraging the people and recommending to the people, alaykum bil ilm qabla an yuqbad. Upon you is to seek knowledge before it's snatched away. And the snatching away of knowledge is something that happens. How many of the ulama of the past from our, generation before us, did we wish we could have caught them before they passed away? And it's a source of sadness for those of them that we missed. And this is something that is consistent throughout the time. We were recently reading about Sahnun, the one who is credited with compiling or organizing the Mudawwana of Imam Malik. In Sahnun, he left Maghrib al-Arabi, right? He left the Western Arab lands to go travel to the Eastern Arab lands like Medina and things like that to seek knowledge. He left in the year 178. And he says, if it wasn't because of poverty, I would have caught Imam Malik, right? This is the Imam that he had the most affiliation to and the most love for. And, he missed him. Imam Malik died in the year 179. And so, even though he was able to accomplish knowledge by meeting others, that was a source of sadness for him. And when you look through the biographies of the Salaf, you find tons of examples of people who wanted to go learn, but ended up missing the individual that they wish they could have learned from. And so if this is an example, then the lesson is, alaykum bil ilmi qabla an yuqbad. Upon you is knowledge before it's taken away. Right? To miss out on the first-hand acquisition of the knowledge of people like Imam Malik or people like Shu'bah or whoever it may be, to miss out on that first-hand knowledge, then this is something that is saddening. And even though knowledge and faith will still be present, alaykum bil ilmi qabla an yuqbad. Take advantage of those opportunities as soon as possible. Because the knowledge might be taken away. As Ibn Mas'ud, he says, in the taking away of knowledge, is the going away of its people. It's not that Allah will remove the knowledge out of the hearts until it can't be found on the earth, but instead the going away of the knowledge is that Allah will take away its people or take away the access to the people. And at a time where we live, where the wasa'il, the means of communication and acquisition, are abundant. One of us can sit at home and attend a lesson in the Prophet's masjid from the comfort of our bed. It seems as if the acquisition of attaining knowledge has become much more simpler. But in spite of that, we find that the people's acquiring of the knowledge has become much lesser. So in spite of the fact that the wasa'il, the means, have become much more simplified, we find that instead of people becoming more knowledgeable, it's led to a lessening of the diligence and the effort that people put into acquiring knowledge. And this is something that this statement of Ibn Mas'ud is meant to remind us of. Seek knowledge before it's taken away. What happens when we lose our internet connection? What happens when we move away from the masjid that had the library? What happens when the mashayikh aren't necessarily allowed to come and visit us in our homes, right? When, you find the mashayikh coming and traveling to visit us instead of us going to visit them. What happens when those things are no longer possible? What happens, even sometimes the taking away of knowledge isn't by the taking away of its people, but as we said, the taking away of the access to them. What happens when we get older and our responsibilities become more? What happens when we have children and they prevent us from doing the things that we could do in our youth? And so seeking knowledge needs to be done sooner rather than later. And this is an important advice from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Upon you is knowledge before it's taken away. And the taking away of knowledge is the going away of its people, right? Those who are the most entitled to it. And we talked about this last time. Those who are the most entitled to knowledge because of how they act regarding it and the way that they interact with the acquisition and the transmission of knowledge. They have the most qualifications, and they have the most qualifications also because of how they act with the knowledge. So it's not just how they act in acquiring the knowledge, the effort that they put in acquiring it, nor is it just how they act and the effort that they put in distributing the knowledge. It's also the effort that they have in the way that they act according to the knowledge. So you find them being the most entitled, ahluhu, the people who are most qualified and entitled to be considered from the people of knowledge because of these three stages. And these three stages are something that a student should evaluate in himself. Has he put the proper effort in acquiring the knowledge? Because this is the first stage. Has he gone out? Has he traveled? Has he acquired? Has he done everything in his ability? Whatever the ability that he has he taken whatever steps are capable by him to acquire the knowledge? This is the first step. And everybody's stage and level of acquisition might be different. But is he doing what he is capable of? Then the second step, how one acts with the knowledge. Right? The information that he learns, is he implementing it? Is he paying its zakat? The zakat of knowledge is one of its zakats. It's to act according to it. When he learns something, does he implement it in his daily routine? Even if only once, does he try to implement the information that he comes across and acquires? Or is it more of a scholastic exercise? And then the third stage is, how does he act? His qualification is recognized in the way that he acts in disseminating the knowledge. So it's an acquisition and in acting according to, and his act of distributing it after acquiring it. And these are how you can recognize the person is qualified, right? A person who's not known for having studied, then he doesn't have the qualifications that would entitle him by us to be recognized from the people of knowledge, from those who are entitled to knowledge, ahluhu, right? The most qualified and suitable of it. A person who doesn't act according to it, right? Then he might not be able to be acknowledged by us to be from the most entitled to knowledge. He is, ruined his entitlement by not acting according. And the one who doesn't is not known for teaching. The one who isn't known for having a position where his statements are apparent and recognizable, in a position where others can see what he's saying and scrutinize and evaluate, right? This is one of the qualities that the people of knowledge, and it's something that we see from some people nowadays, is that that's not their affair, right? Most of their conversations are in closed gatherings, in private communiques, and the people of knowledge, the thing that makes them entitled is that yasda' bil haqq. They stand firm with their chest out regarding the truth. When it's something that needs to be said, they say it. وَلَا يَخَافُونَ فِي اللَّهِ لَوْمَةَ اللَّائِمِ. And they don't fear, as it relates to Allah, the blame of anyone who would criticize. And this is something that, with knowledge, with the proper acquisition and the proper implementation, is a way we recognize somebody's entitled to this qualification of being from the people of knowledge. You haven't found them being scared to speak the truth. They speak it with etiquette. They speak it with wisdom. They speak it with weighing the pros and the cons, the harms versus the benefits. But when it comes time for something that needs to be said, then they say it. And they're known for their lessons. They're known for their teaching. They're known for their preoccupation with these type of actions. You don't find them involved in drama often. You don't find them constantly involved in bickering and back and forths. Their main preoccupation is with distributing the knowledge. So this is kind of what it's meant when he says that the going away of its people, i.e. those who are the most entitled to being described with it. And these qualifications let you know who its people are. Or he might have said ashabuhu, the companions of knowledge. And this, right, kind of goes with that second qualification that we mentioned, but it's similar, right? Those who are constantly in the companionship and in the company of knowledge. Those who knowledge has become their main companion, their main sidekick, their main companion or travel mate, or the one who they find the most comfort with. You always find them muraja, mudhakara, right? Reviewing, going over information, acquiring, distributing. You always find them learning. They carry a book with them. They're never involved in the affairs of the dunya. Hakada, this is what it's meant to be from the companions of knowledge, right? Ashabul ilm. And these words, like we mentioned last time, when you consider them in Arabic, they kind of give a greater value to these qualities than just saying them in English. The people of knowledge, the companions of knowledge, right? Those words in English, at least for me, sometimes don't carry the full weight of what those words in Arabic are expressing. In any circumstance, Ibn Mas'ud, he goes on to say, upon you is knowledge, right? The same thing, encouraging us with the acquisition of knowledge. Because one of you does not know when there will be a need for him. One of you doesn't know when the people might need him. Knowledge needs to be acquired sooner rather than later. Because although today you're the young one of the community, you're the person that almost nobody listens to you, right? There are old people with gray beards who none of them pay attention to your ideas and your thoughts, right? Per se. You never know when there might be a need for you. You never know when the elders and those who are above you and those who are your seniors will go away. And when those individuals go away, if you haven't learned and acquired knowledge sooner rather than later, then the people will be left with ru'asa juhala, with leaders who are ignorant, because nobody acquired the knowledge before the people of knowledge were taken away. And so one of you doesn't know when there will be a need for him, specifically the personality, the person, the identity, to step into their shoes and to fulfill their role. And if it wasn't for the fact that the knowledge has been a succession and a continuous chain since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until now, then where would we be at in our religion except in the state similar to the likes of the Jews and the Christians, who have these major gaps and disconnects as it relates to their identity in their religion and their information in their religion. And so, but by us having these personalities and these identities that we can identify, and we saw that Al-Lalaka'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he began his book by mentioning some of those identities. We can identify the truth and correlate between it and its people. So we can see that in every generation, okay, here goes so-and-so, and here goes so-and-so. And this truth was constantly somebody else stepping up to fulfill the role of distributing it. And so none of you knows when there'll be a need for him, i.e. for that person to actually take the reins and take that position. Like some environments, the presence of scholarship is abundant, and there might not be a need for him in totality as a personality or as an individual. But Ibn Mas'ud, he also says, or when there will be a need for what he has. So there might not be a need for you as a person to take the reins of scholarship and leadership in your community, to be the imam, to be the mufti, to be the qadi, right? That might never happen for you. But does that mean you can disregard knowledge because there is a sufficiency of leadership and intellect and wisdom in your community? No, you should still get knowledge sooner rather than later, because none of you knows when there will be a need for what he has. Maybe you acquire a piece of information that escapes those who are higher than you. And how abundant did we see this in the life of the Salaf, when the likes of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali would be ignorant of a ruling of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they wouldn't find it except with one individual or two individuals from those who were beneath them. And so in this bi'ah, in this environment where there's an abundance of scholarship, an abundance of companions, right, the best of people, you find that even amongst them, there was a piece of information that missed them. And so none of you knows when there will be a need for them as the entirety, as the person, or there will be a need for what is with them, that which they possess, that piece of information. And so all of these are reasons and encouragements to seek knowledge sooner rather than later. طيب. In seeking knowledge, there is a benefit. And this is the part that we stopped at last time. Ibn Mas'ud is going to talk about some of the benefits in seeking knowledge. And some of these benefits are direct and obvious, and some of these benefits are indirect or maybe less obvious. But from these benefits is that knowledge, and when we talk about knowledge, we know that كل علم سوى القرآن مشغلة إلا الحديث وإلا الفقه في الدين. That every knowledge besides the Quran is busyness, or is a waste of time or a preoccupation, except hadith and except the understanding of the religion. So when we talk about knowledge, we're talking about that religious knowledge here. So what are the benefits in seeking religious knowledge? from the most important benefits, like from the obvious benefits, is that an individual can implement the religion and act according to it, right? And that's a benefit because that's what the key to power is. Right? And obey Allah and His Messenger in order that you can be shown mercy. But from the indirect benefits of knowledge, or from the things that are maybe less obvious to some, is that knowledge actively and passively protects you. Knowledge actively protects you, meaning you can use the knowledge as a weapon and as a defense to protect and assault the falsehood. So it's active in its protection and in its assaulting the falsehood. But it's also passive in doing so, meaning the knowledge, even if you're not actively trying to do something, you're not actively trying to propagate the religion, you're not actively defending the religion, you find that knowledge passively protects you from harm. And this is something that is from the most beneficial benefits of knowledge, is that even without there being a conscious effort, it passively protects you. And so here, Ibn Mas'ud, he says, وَإِنَّكُمْ سَتَجِدُونَ أَقْوَامٍ. Verily, you're going to find a group of people who are going to claim that they are calling you to the book of Allah, but they have thrown it behind their backs. So upon you is knowledge. This is something that we experience in abundance in today's day and age. We come across large groups of people in every social setting and on every social platform, in every country, in most masajid, in most communities. There are people who they believe, perhaps with honesty or with treachery, with knowledge or with ignorance, that they are calling to the book of Allah. They think that their way is the proper way, or they, are actively trying to corrupt the correct path. But we come across these people, these large groups of people, who they claim that they are calling to the book of Allah. But the reality is that they have thrown the book of Allah behind their back. So upon you is knowledge. Because knowledge is how you actively protect yourself from falling into these traps and accompanying these individuals or being misled by them. So here is how you protect yourself actively. It's through the use of knowledge. When you come across a person who is spouting claims about the religion of Islam, you should do this and you can't do this, and this is necessary and this is haram and it's preferable that you do this, and this is what we believe and this is how we act, and you should write this down and you should learn this, or you should behave in this way, or you need to say this, or you need to abandon that. How do you actively protect yourself from those people who the deception that they are upon can be so unclear that they don't even know the error of it? Meaning they can have good intention and still be away from the book of Allah, let alone those who have evil intentions. How do you protect yourself from these groups of people? You protect yourself from them by knowledge. So you are going to find a group of people who claim that they are calling you to the book of Allah, right? They claim that what they're calling to is the Quran and the Sunnah, but they have thrown it behind their backs, whether knowingly or ignorantly, right? Maybe they don't mean to throw it behind their backs, but when push comes to shove, when the affairs are tested and their temperament is recognized, we see that no, what you're upon is actually against the Quran and the Sunnah. It's as if you turned your back to it. And this is something that we see too much today, unfortunately. so many people turning their back to the Quran and the Sunnah. So how do you protect yourself from them? How do you actively defend against this? Then you do it with knowledge. Alaykum bil ilm. طيب. He says, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّبَدُّعْ. And I'm warning you against innovation. And this innovation is something that requires active protection as well. You have to actively protect yourself from innovation. Right? So how do you actively protect yourself from innovation? He says, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّنَطُّعْ. And I'm warning you against pig-headedness, right? This is an example of like tasawwuf, or, you know, some of the extremes that people go into, the hard-headedness, the ignorance, the stubbornness upon opinions, right? Being niggardly, they call it, right? An old English word, you find it translated like this at times. And it has nothing to do with the racial content. But that concept, how do you protect yourself from innovation, from trying to get closer to Allah in a way that was not legislated? How do you protect yourself from being stubborn and pig-headed and foolish, right? Acting in a way that you shouldn't when you should know better. He says, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّعَمُّقْ. And I'm warning you against diving too deep into matters that you shouldn't, right? Trying to be too deep, too profound, too insightful in topics that don't require that from you, that don't concern you, frankly, or that you can't reach that level of insight. تَفَكَّرُوا فِي آلَاءِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَفَكَّرُوا فِي الذَّاتِ. Right? Think about the favors of Allah, or the creation of Allah, and don't try to figure out the essence of Allah. How do you protect yourself from these ills and these deficiencies? He says, وَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالْعَتِيقِ. And upon you is the classical way, the older way, right? The not the contemporary way, but the antique way, right? The atiq, the old way. Because if you, by simply being the way that they were, this is passively protecting you from those ways. You can't be upon what Abu Bakr was upon and fall into innovation. Not even actively trying to avoid innovation, but just by simply doing their action, this is a passive protection. So the knowledge is actively protecting you, and it's also passively protecting you. It's protecting you from the people of innovation. Like we talked about before, I remember being in our masjid and a jama'ah came into the masjid from the people who are unfortunately upon innovation. And alhamdulillah, our masjid, we have classes. We were sitting there going over hadith, and you could see the frustration of this jama'ah because they didn't find an opening or any madkhal, any entrance to try to preoccupy us with their false claims of calling to the book and the Sunnah. How can you interrupt a group of people learning the book and the Sunnah with the claim that you're going to call them to the book and the Sunnah? So this is passively protecting you. You being preoccupied is going to protect you from the fitna. When we think about the fitna that has affected some of the youth or the jama'at of our ikhwanana min as-salafiyyin, from our brothers upon the Salafi minhaj, and he said, you know, it was said, the back and forth, the separation and things like that. If a person is preoccupied with the book and the Sunnah, it's passively protecting him from falling into these affairs. If a person is busy with learning knowledge, when does he have time to get involved in who is and who isn't on it or off it? He's preoccupied. And so the knowledge is passively protecting him. And then that knowledge that he was acquiring that was passively protecting him, when there is a need for it, I need to know what to do and to have some active activism or protection. You find him having the tools. So he was kept safe in the, if you will, the cocoon of knowledge while he was learning. And then when he acquired, when it was now time to actively defend or actively propagate, he was now in a position to do that because he acquired. And so this knowledge is something that is actively protecting you from the bad companionship. And it's also something that passively protects you. And this knowledge is something that actively protects you from innovation and from pig-headedness and from, you know, I'm trying to think of a good word, ta'ammuk, right? False sense of being deep in, you know, conscious, a false wokeness, even though it's not the right word, but like a false sense of wokeness and understanding. Knowledge is what actively protects you from those things. But in addition to it, it also passively protects you. And one of the best ways that it passively protects you is that you will be on the classical way. And if you are doing that which is classical, you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry. And this goes back to that statement that I love, the statement, الاقتصاد في السنة خير من الاجتهاد في البدعة. Being balanced and even doing a little bit of the sunnah is better than, you know, working hard and doing an abundance of innovation. Because if you're doing just what you know to be correct, you don't have to figure out the additions, are they right or wrong? And so all of this is an encouragement from Ibn Mas'ud for us to just simply hold on to the book and the sunnah and don't worry about surpassing them or going past them, because in it there is our active as well as our passive protection. Now we'll take a couple more narrations. He says, أخبرنا محمد بن عمر بن حميد قال أنبأنا أحمد بن عبد الله الوكيل قال حدثنا حماد بن الحسن قال حدثنا أزهر عن ابن عون عن محمد بن سيرين أنه قال كانوا يرونه على الطريق ما دام على الأثر. الله أكبر. He says that Muhammad ibn Umar ibn Humayd informed us. He said that Ahmad ibn Abdullah al-Wakil informed us. He said that Hamad ibn al-Hasan narrated to us. He said that Azhar narrated to us on the authority of Ibn Aun, on the authority of Muhammad ibn Sirin, who said that they used to see him, i.e., they used to see a person as being upon the correct path as long as that person was following the athar. And the word athar here, and this is why I say like the Arabic, it paints a more vivid picture. The word athar here is that which is left behind, right? When something leaves a mark or an impression, they call that mark or impression an athar, and a remnant, an artifact. And they also use it as it relates to a footstep or the markings that are left on the path. And so Muhammad ibn Sirin, he's saying, how would you know somebody's on the proper path? Right? Imagine this religion, and it's often compared to a path in so many things. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم قل هذه سبيلي وإن هذا صراطي مستقيما. Right? النهج الواضح وتركتكم على بيضاء ليلها كنهارها. Now, what's the other narration? I can't remember right now. But the point is very often it's compared to a path, sharia. So many words in this religion represent it as being that which is considered a path, shu'bah, right? And so how do you know a person is on the correct path? Imagine this world as unpaved, unimproved land, a forest, a wilderness, no lights, no street lights, no city, no signpost. This is the majority of the world. And you have to find your way in it. And you have to get to Dar es Salaam, the home of safety and peace. You have to get to Dar al-Qarar, the home of establishment. You have to get to the hereafter, but you have to navigate this rough terrain. When we look at this path has a lot of qualities. And, now isn't the time to necessarily talk about the representation of all of the different qualities that this path has. But from the most basic qualities that we have to recognize the path is looking at the footsteps of the people in front of us, looking at the traces that they were left or that were left behind by them, right? Yes, this path has signposts, and yes, this path actually in reality has been paved. And yes, this path is wide and has lanes and has highway markers and has, companions on the path and people going the same way as us and all of the other examples that we've mentioned from time to time. But in its most fundamental way of recognizing if a person is on the right path is just look. Is he putting his footsteps in the same place of the footsteps of the person before him? Like when you walk through grass consistently and you cut that path through the trees or through somebody's yard to the extent that you see the grass doesn't grow in that section that's constantly being walked through. Muhammad ibn Sirin, he says, kana yarawnahu ala tariq. They used to see him as being on the path as long as he was on the athar, as long as he was following those traces, those footsteps, those artifacts, those remnants, those things that were left behind by the people before him. And this is the most simple way of knowing if somebody's on the path. Just look at them. Just see what they are implementing, what they are holding on to. What road are they following? Do they act like Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali? Do they talk like Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali? Do they think? Do they say? Do they believe? Right? If they're doing those things, then they're on the path. Very often people might ask, how do you recognize if somebody is Salafi? How do you recognize? And we mentioned like this term, Sunnah والجماعة, the family of the Sunnah, right? It's like a big relationship. Recognize through your in-laws, through your relatives, through your cousins, right? How do you know? Because you see them resembling each other, acting like each other. And so this is that which was left behind, because they didn't leave behind physical footprints. Just like the shaitan doesn't leave behind all the time physical footprints. But Allah Azza wa Jalla, he says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Don't follow the footsteps of the shaitan. And like this, we've been commanded to follow the athar of the Salaf. And so Muhammad ibn Sirin, he says, they used to say that the person was on the path as long as he was on the athar. They don't leave the physical artifacts behind, but what they left behind is knowledge. Right? إن لا يورث دينارا ولا درهما وإنما يورثون العلم فمن أخذ به أخذ حظا وافر. They don't inherit, the prophets, they don't inherit any dinar or any dirham, but what they leave behind is knowledge. And so this is the athar that is being talked about, right? Are you holding on to the Quran? Are you holding on to the Sunnah? Then you're on the tariq. Another version of that same narration, he says, أخبرنا أحمد بن عبيد قال أنبأنا محمد بن الحسين قال حدثنا أحمد بن زهير قال حدثنا عبيد الله بن عمر قال حدثنا أزهر عن ابن عون عن محمد بن سيرين أنه قال كانوا يرون أنهم على الطريق ما كانوا على الأثر. Here, just a slightly different wordage. He says that Ahmed ibn Ubaid informed us, that Muhammad ibn al-Hussein informed us. He said that Ahmed ibn Zuhair narrated to us. He said that Ubaidullah ibn Umar narrated to us. He said that Azhar narrated to us on the authority of Ibn Aoun, on the authority of Muhammad ibn Sirin, who said they used to see that they were upon the path as long as they were upon the athar, meaning they would judge themselves. And like just these simple different wordages, they provide such a big benefit, right? They would see that the person was on the path as long as he was on the athar. That's how they would judge others. But don't think that the affair is always just about judging others. That's how they would judge themselves. كانوا يرون أنهم. They would see that they were on the path as long as they were upon the ether. Right? To the extent that you are upon the ether is the extent that you are Salafi. It's the extent that you are upon the path. It's the extent that you're on the sirat. And so, حاسبوا أنفسكم قبل أن تحاسبوا. Reckon yourselves before you're reckoned. Right? وزنوا أعمالكم قبل أن توزنوا. And weigh your own actions before they're weighed for you. Right? Consider and judge yourself. How much am I upon the ether? Because the extent that I am upon the ether, then this is the extent that I am upon the path. Another version of that narration, and we'll stop shortly. He says, أخبرنا أحمد بن عبيد قال حدثنا محمد بن الحسين قال حدثنا أحمد بن زهير قال حدثنا عبيد الله بن عمر قال حدثنا أزهر عن ابن عون عن محمد بن سيرين وأخبرنا أحمد قال أنبأنا علي بن عبد الله بن مبشر قال حدثنا أحمد بن سنان قال سمعت شاذ بن يحيى يقول ليس طريق أقصد إلى الجنة من طريق من سلك الآثار. So he mentions the same isnad that he had a second ago. He says, Ahmed ibn Ubaid informed us. He said that Muhammad ibn al-Husayn narrated to us. He said that Ahmed ibn Zuhair narrated to us. He said that Ubaidullah ibn Umar narrated to us. He said that Azhar narrated to us on the authority of Ibn Aoun, on the authority of Muhammad ibn Sirin. But then he brings another chain as well. He says, as well, Ahmed informed us. He said that Ali ibn Abdullah ibn Mubashir informed us. He said that Ahmed ibn Sinan narrated to us. He said that I heard Shadh ibn Yahya, who said, there is no path that is more directly, headed to paradise than the path of those who traverse the athar. There is no path that is more directly headed to paradise than the path of those who traverse the athar, that which was left behind, those remnants, those footsteps, right? كلهم في النار إلا واحد. All of them are entitled to the hellfire or going to the hellfire or in the hellfire except one. These different firaq that we talk about when we talk about the 73 different firaq of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the things that the scholars they mention about them is that these 72 groups that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about them, كلها في النار, all of them are in the hellfire except one. They make a point to mention that these 72 groups are not disbelievers. They are not kuffar. They will not spend an eternity in the hellfire. They are just entitled to the hellfire, and they are not safe from the hellfire, that they will be punished therein. But from these 72 groups, they are not kuffar. So this doesn't include the groups like the Rafidah and the Nation of Islam or the Vice Lords, right? These people are not Muslim. So they're not from the 72 groups that the Prophet warned about. They are like the Asha'ira, the Sufiya, right? These are from those 72 groups. People who are still Muslim. So inshallah, they'll eventually make it to Jannah. But they'll make it to Jannah with a deviation or with a detour, right? If we're using the analogy of a road, they took the long way, the roundabout way. They took a detour. They made a wrong turn. And so inshallah, they'll eventually get back to the path. But because they took that wrong turn, what does the Prophet say about every misguidance, every error, every mistake on the path? Kullu dhalalatin fin nar. Every error leads to the hellfire. There's only one straight road. And so every time they make those wrong turns, and some people, they only make one wrong turn. And so it's easy to get back on the path. They just have to go, 3 lefts make a right. But sometimes people, they make one wrong turn and another and another and another until they're lost. And sometimes when they get lost, They might just decide to go somewhere else. We were trying to get to such and such a restaurant, but I can't figure out the path. I got lost. You know what? We're just going to eat somewhere else. I don't feel like staying on this road. We're just going to go somewhere else now. Wa'yadu billah, as it relates to Islam, these people have left. They have separated themselves and gone to a different religion. But from the people are those who get lost, but with Allah's permission, they eventually make it back, right? They find that a way to get back on the path in some way, even with their error, even with their mistake. These people will, inshallah, end up in paradise. So from those who make one wrong turn to those who make 50 wrong turns, you find that they, inshallah, will still make it to paradise. But there is no path that is more directly headed, aqsad. And this word qasd, it has like a deeper meaning, right? It's directly headed. Its intended path, its intended direction is the Jannah. But not only is that its intended direction the paradise, the path itself has this quality of being muqtasid, balanced, leveled, right? It's not a bunch of up and downs. It's not a bunch of bends and turns. It's a balanced, straight path. So it's the quickest path, the most direct path, not just as in a straight line, but a lot of ups and downs. No, straight and flat. There is no shorter way to get to paradise, right? I love this example that Allah sets and the messenger sets. So I remember my family and myself, we would often argue about, different routes to get to a place. Going to Philly, which one is quicker? Is it quicker to take 470? What is that? 476 and come around the back way, or come all the way up through 76? Taking this street to get to the house versus the back way to the subdivision versus the front way. All roads might end the same place. But, sometimes it could be an issue of traffic versus an issue of actual, feet and meters. Similarly, in this analogy, right? It's not just that it's straighter as a straight line, but it's also aqsad. Its intended destination was the Jannah. When we're on the highways, maybe we want to go somewhere, and these roads might all lead to the same direction eventually, but this one wants to take you to this city, and this one wants to take you on to that city, while this one is the path that was made to get to the city you're trying to go to. And then we might find that some of the paths, they might be similar in time, but there's more feet and meters. There's more ups and downs or twists and bends. So even though it's a highway where you can go 60 and the other one is a straight road or a different way where you can go 40, and the 60 might get you there as fast as the 40, the 61 has more square foot or square meters or square miles that you have, or actual miles that you have to traverse. But as it comes to paradise, there is no aqsad. There is no quicker and more intentful and more direct and more shorter of a route to paradise than the ones who traverse the athar. There's no way to get to Jannah quicker. And if this is the ultimate goal of every individual, then what sense does it make to travel on other than the athar? Why would I seek a path other than the path of the Salaf? Right? From the foolishness of the people of innovation, they have this phrase where they say that tariq salaf aslam wa tariqatul khalaf ahkam wa a'lam. The way, the path of the Salaf was safer. Oh, if you want to take the safe way, if you want to play it safe, if you want to, be more precautious, then yeah, do what the Salaf did. But they say the way of the later generations is more knowledgeable and more wise. And this just doesn't make sense. There's no quicker way to get to Jannah than the way of the Salaf. So even if their statement was true, why would anybody take it? Right? As if we're trying to test our manhood by playing with fire. No, I'm going to take the easy road. I'm going to take the simple path. That's if their statement was true. فكيف, how could it be when their statement in actuality is contradictory? The reason the way of the Salaf was safer was because it was more knowledgeable, and was because it was more wise. And we see this in their statements. That athar, it's not actual footsteps, it's the knowledge they left behind. So if their way was safer, why was it safer? It was because of the knowledge. If their way was safer, why was it safer? It was because of the wisdoms. If their way was safer, then why was it safer? It's because they traveled the path. And so me following in their footsteps is going to be the easiest and quickest and most direct way to get to Jannah. فَلَيْسَ طَرِيقٌ أَقْصَدُ إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ مِنْ طَرِيقِ مَنْ سَلَكَ الْآثَارِ. There's no more direct way to get to Jannah than that of the path of the one who travels on the athar, the one who travels on top of that foundation that was laid by those who came before. You'll find this one getting into paradise in a much more direct route. نقف على هذا. We'll stop at that amount inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.